Tianbao Fu Yao Lu. Chapter 135. A flash of revelation. In the city of Yuzhou, the Yao Qi was so dense that there was no need for them to go searching, they felt it as soon as they walked in. The inhabitants in the city were almost evenly split between Yao and human. The only humans were the Yuzhou city guards that went around wearing leather armor, bearing weapons in their hands, while the Yao were the residents in the city. A burst of resentment shot high into the sky. The original citizens of Yuzhou had basically all been eaten by the Yaoguai, and sly, ugly snake Yao, pig Yao, fox Yao, tiger Yao, and the like had replaced the residents of the city. They fought right there in the streets, while others gathered around to watch. This city itself towered over the plains like a huge monstrosity, its maw gaping open. It turned away newcomers, but as soon as any merchants or travelers entered the city, they became nothing more than food in the mouths of the Yao. Morrigan and Lu Su did not walk in from the front, instead choosing to climb over the outer wall, heading directly into a relatively secluded area of the city. "There's too many," Lu Su said. "We have to notify." "Who are we supposed to notify?" Morrigan and Lu Su walked along in a small alleyway, observing the situation inside the city. Before they had entered, the two of them would have never expected such a scene. Lu Su was taken aback. Who could they notify? The exorcism department? Li Jinglong? As of now, across the entirety of the Divine Land, there were only 7 exorcists. Of those, 4 were in the Dragon Subduing Tower in Hangzhou, and no one knew when they would come out. A middle-aged woman noticed them and headed towards them. Wolf bristles appeared along the 2 sides of Morrigan's face, and his pupils shrank to slits as his eyes turned into the blue-gray of a wolf's, while his canines lengthened. As he transformed his face into his Yao form, he stepped forward, shielding Lu Su from view as he let out a low growl at the woman. That woman greeted them in surprise and said, "A wolf? I haven't seen you two before. Are you new?" Morrigan studied her with eyes full of wariness, before he reached out a furry hand. Lu Su understood what he was getting at, and he took that hand. The two of them crossed the little alleyway, before turning to look at that middle-aged woman. The middle-aged woman lifted a hand. Her hand had no fingers, and the bristles of a spider appeared along one side of her arm. She pointed her leg segment to the north and said, "Newcomers should go to the Wei Manor to have their names recorded." Morrigan did not reply. Instead, he led Lu Su quickly out of the alleyway. Many Yaoguai passed to and fro along the street. Though they had all taken the forms of civilians, those with tails had their tails out, while those with furry ears kept those on their heads. Evidently, none of them could be bothered to hide those. For there to be such a city in the human realm, filled with Yao that swaggered about daringly in broad daylight, was something that Lu Su would never have been able to imagine in his wildest dreams. "They seem to all recognize each other," Lu Su said quietly to Morrigan. Morrigan scooted in close to Lu Su's ear and whispered back, "Fox Yao have very keen hearing. Stop your chatter." At that, Lu Su stopped talking, and he and Morrigan crossed the main street, heading in the direction of the Wei Manor. The only thought occupying his mind was figuring out how to extricate them. If they were discovered by the Yaoguai in the city, as long as they weren't encircled, the Grey Wolf and White Deer's speeds were very fast, and Lu Su could also leap through the air. At most, he would have to carry Morrigan on his back as he flew out of the city. The trouble lay in the fact that right now, he didn't know how much information Morrigan wanted to obtain before he was willing to leave. If there were powerful great Yaoguai amongst their enemies, it would be difficult to avoid a fight. A long line had formed outside the Yuzhou Manor, and when Morrigan arrived outside in the street, he immediately gestured for Lu Su to hide. The two of them ducked behind a structure, and they peeked out. "Where do you live? What is your name? What are you here for?" the Carpiao said, its brush poised at the ready as it asked those questions to a weasel who had come here to be registered. "Changlin County," the weasel said. "I don't have a name," but since I heard that Lord Mara is planning to improve our quality of living, I came right away. That weasel had a family of 3 behind it, a wife, a half-grown kid with a weasel head and a human body, who was holding a stinky little weasel in its arms. The little weasel stuck its head out to study the Carpiao. "Let's call you Wu Jiating," the Carpiao said, writing its origins down with a wave of the brush. "Head to the western barracks in the city. Someone there will settle your family of 4 in." The weasel took the tally, and after bowing, left. Behind them came a dark, metal tower-esque warrior, who studied the Carpiao. The Carpiao immediately felt a burst of fear as it was studied by its mortal enemy. The guy in front of him was a bear. The bear Yao's gaze swept over the Carpiao and landed on the woman behind it. In this moment, the Carpiao's owner, the painted-skinned Dan Huo, was holding up a mirror as she drew her eyebrows, and she sent it an even more lethal glance. With that, the bear Yao said, "The Xianbei Mountains, Huang. Is it true that you're not lacking in food here with Mara?" The Carpiao recorded its details down. At this moment, another Yaogwai came over, and it bent and whispered a few sentences into Dan Huo's ear. Dan Huo impatiently tossed the mirror onto the table, and rising, said, "I'll go back to the manor to take a look." "Please don't," the Carpiao was afraid of a cat Yao suddenly appearing, because with a single glare, it would be able to frighten the Carpiao into fainting. "Look at how cowardly you are," Dan Huo said. "I'll be right back, be good." The Carpiao. Dan Huo turned and left, and the Carpiao turned, its nerves all shot, to face down a horde of Yaogwai. It thought, "I'm going to turn into a dragon, I'm not afraid of any of you." Thankfully, there were none of its natural enemies in the rest of the Yaogwai that came to register. The Carpiao had been with the exorcism department for so long that it had also learned to adopt a bit of the severity of an official from Li Jinglong. Though its eyes were at the sides of its head and it had no choice but to turn its head when it was questioning the Yaogwai, that was the only detail marring its posturing. The way it slapped the table and penned its characters was pretty realistic. It wasn't until the sun set behind the western mountains that the amount of Yaogwai entering the city today lessened. With that, the Carpiao packed the ledger away and leapt off its chair. It shivered from the cold wind wrapping itself around its feet, and it bounded back towards the manor. As it turned the corner into a little alleyway, 2 fingers suddenly stuffed themselves into the Carpiao's mouth, and they crooked around its chin as it was lifted into the air. The Carpiao's throat was stuffed up, so it wasn't able to shout "Help me." The world spun around it, and it flailed its arms wildly, only for Morigen's voice to say coldly into its ear, "Long time no see, Zhao Zilong." Lu Su replied expressionlessly, "What a happy surprise." The Carpiao's eyes widened, and it immediately gave up on struggling, looking pitifully at Morigen. The first cold front of the winter swept down south, across the regions of Jiangdong and Jiangxi. As night fell, in the dusty records room of the Jiangzhou Governor Manor, 2 Reindex slumped bored against the table, while Atai searched through the shelves for any records that Direnja had left behind. Pengs County's records had all been moved here 40 years ago, and this records room had long since fallen out of interest. Atai showed the letter from Li Jinglong, and with the addition of a bit of money, easily gained access into the room to search for records. "No clues at all," Atai murmured to himself. "We've basically already dug up everything around Pengs and the surrounding regions. Where exactly did Direnja end up finding the sword?" Turandik's left hand was holding a silver ring that she rolled to her right hand and back again to her left. She said lazily, "You all guessed wrong, didn't you?" "My instincts tell me that I wasn't wrong," Atai said. "Do you remember the information that we found on the way here?" In Pengs, Atai and Turandik had asked a good number of people, including some old men over 80. One of them had actually been a messenger for the county government office, and had indeed noticed that Direnja had a sword. As for where it had come from, he wasn't sure. Aside from that, there was another person who had been there to welcome Direnja when he took on the position of the governor of Pengs. You'd best find it within the next 3 days, or else. Tu Reinduct couldn't read Han characters, and since she couldn't read them, she couldn't help Atai search through the records. Atai frowned. I told you to go back to the inn to rest, but you wouldn't go. Tu Reinduct had insisted on going with Atai. Atai had been afraid that she might get bored but couldn't decline her request at the same time, so he had no choice but to take her with him. That's right. I'm not like Kong Hung Jun, I'm not like Lu Su, I'm not like their wives, Tu Reinduct said. I'm not even a man, so I can't fight with you all. What are you saying? Atai said, torn between laughing and crying. It's not like I like men. Tu Reinduct fell silent at that. Atai tossed the records that he had already looked through into a large, empty crock, and he stretched, before saying, Why do you always say yes but think no? If you're bored, then go back and rest. Can you be a little more obedient? This seemed to strike a nerve with Tu Reinduct, because she immediately grew enraged. Obedient? And whose words would I obey? Yours. If I were willing, I would have long since been married. Like you would even have a chance. And saying this, Tu Reinduct moved to strike with her leather whip. Atai's expression immediately changed. Don't. I was wrong. Don't get violent. It was with that Tu Reinduct glared at Atai, before saying, Then sing me a song. Atai. Atai was in the middle of doing something, but now had to go sing to Tu Reinduct, which really made him feel as if he was reaching the end of his rope, plus, if he didn't sing, he would get whipped. He had no choice but to grab his lute and sit down primly and properly in front of Tu Reinduct. What should I sing? Atai asked solemnly. Whatever, Tu Reinduct drawled, leaning back in her chair. Why not sing The Birds Have Flown Away and Returned? You never get tired of listening to it, Atai chuckled. Tu Reinduct studied Atai with an expression of discontent, and she said, Am I not allowed to like this song? So, Atai plucked at the strings of his lute, before starting to sing. The birds have flown away and returned, and the tides have ebbed and flowed. The flowers have blossomed and withered, and the grasslands have greened and yellowed. The stars are born and fall again, and unalterable oaths of love have been spoken, yet forgotten. Only your eyes, like the dark blue of that lake water, make it so that I want nothing more than to stay forever by your side. As Atai sang, for some reason, he thought of the day that he and Tu Reinduct met. That was the winter when he was 12. He was playing his lute in the desolate temple, singing sorrowfully. Tu Reinduct, along with her uncle's caravan, was passing through the temple, and when they entered to pay their respects to the long-extinguished sacred flame, she passed through the garden and unexpectedly found Atai, who was at that time singing behind a pillar. As he sang, he looked towards Tu Reinduct. It was early winter, and the soft, light snow fell onto the strings of his lute. As his fingers plucked the strings, they quivered, sending the snowflakes flying as crystalline powder, vanishing into the air. Later, she often came to visit this young high priest, and during the summer and winter seasons, she came and went like a migratory bird, never stopping. Every time autumn left and winter came, when he wore a black robe and stood in front of the ashes of the sacred flame, offering his prayers, she would bring some money and food and place it on the altar. 14 years ago, his teacher was still there. She expressionlessly watched the glance that Atai sent to Reinduct as he stood in front of the altar. The stars have told me that the wife in your destiny is not to be her, the female saint's voice said into his ear. If destiny grants me a parting, then I will bear that burden calmly when it comes. If destiny gifts me a happy reunion, I am happy to endure any hardships. Atai set the female saint's body on fire, and when the last inheritor of the temple burned to ash, Tu Reinduct stood behind him from beginning to end. My kingly father told me to choose someone to be wed to forever, Tu Reinduct said. The first person I thought of was you. Atai turned to study to Reindict, but he didn't reply. A beatific smile had appeared onto Reindict's face, as bright and brilliant as the patches upon patches of fresh flowers that blossomed by the banks of the Yermosi lake. I cannot marry you, Atai said. I'm too busy. You should marry someone else. I can wait, Tu Reindict said in reply. Once you are no longer busy, remember this. If destiny makes me part from you, then I will accept that calmly when it comes. If destiny gifts me a happy marriage, I am happy to endure any hardships, Atai sang softly. As long as I am able to see the lake water of your eyes again. Tu Reindict leaned up against the table, looking into the yard outside the records room. The plum blossoms were blooming on that winter night, and snow had begun to fall. Go work on your stuff, Tu Reindict said smilingly, after she heard the song. In her life, as long as she was able to hear Atai singing, she would live with no more regrets. Seeing the lake water of your eyes, as dark and deep as the night, Atai sang at the end. The lake water of your eyes. Suddenly, the sound of Atai's lute stopped. Tu Reindict. Atai frowned. He had grasped the hint of an idea. Tu Reindict asked, Are you hungry? I'll go make something for you to eat. Atai immediately lifted a hand, indicating that Tu Reindict not disturb his train of thought, before he rose swiftly to his feet, saying, I found it. What did you find? Tu Reindict asked. You're even able to think of this. Atai said, We've searched across an entire 200 li of land surrounding Pengs, isn't that right? Tu Reindict said, That's right. They were all fields. They were fields before, and they are still fields after it. There was nothing. Atai exclaimed, There's one more place that we left out. Lake Poyang. Let me see, here it is. Atai was digging through the shelf with the records of hydrological data. In the autumn of the third year of Changshao, the waters of Lake Poyang dipped, revealing an ancient path. Huaying led the county troops in a reconnaissance effort, and entered the path alone, spending a day and a night in there. It must have been there. In the dry season, along the ancient path that appears at the bottom of the lake. As night fell over Yuzhu, red lanterns lit up the entire city, and the air was filled with the sounds of wild laughter, as if a horde of Yaogwai were dancing, lending a strange atmosphere to the scene. In an abandoned residence, a few cold corpses had been stuffed under the beds. Evidently, after the Yaogwai had finished eating the people here, they didn't like the house, so they had swiftly left without even cleaning up. For the sake of avoiding the eyes and ears of the Yaogwai, Morigin and Lusu had brought the captive Carpiao here. At this moment, the two of them were sitting to one side of the table, while the Carpiao was lying on it. Its mouth moved a few times, before it finished with, That's how everything went down. I'm not lying to you. Lusu asked, What are you lying down for? Don't you know how to stand and talk? The Carpiao replied, Ever since coming to Yuzhu, my heart hasn't been good, I can't take any more shock. Morigin interjected, Stop pretending to be feeble. What is an Lushan planning? The Carpiao replied, He plans to consume city after city, before sending the Yaogwai into each of the cities to replace the humans. First was Yuzhu, then it will be Jiangnan, and then Jingzhou and Bingzhou. Once he surrounds the central plains, he'll then raise an army to rebel, and he'll have the human soldiers fight on ahead while the Yaogwai follow behind. Is he not afraid of the exorcism department at all? Morigin asked. The Carpiao replied, There are only a few people in the exorcism department. They can't take care of an entire city of Yaogwai. Lusu asked in response, How much insider information did you tell them? The Carpiao was infuriated, and with a Carpiao flip, it stood up, yelling angrily, I didn't say anything at all. Morigin said to Lusu, It doesn't dare to say anything. Before, it was with us, and then it was one of Xiaoyu's people. Xiaoyu's fish. If An Lushan were to learn of that, he wouldn't let it go. It's not because of this that my lips stayed as tightly sealed as a bottle, the Carpiao roared, even more infuriated now. Sure, Lu Su comforted it disinterestedly. You did it for the sake of us brothers' safety. Morrigan sniffed contemptuously at that. The Carpiao was so mad that its entire body was about to turn red, and it was on the verge of turning into a koi. Morrigan said coldly, though it seems like there are a large amount of Yaogwai, they are all a motley crowd. As long as we get rid of Enlushan, the rest of them will naturally scatter like the birds and beasts. How do we get rid of him? Lu Su asked. Should we fight our way into the manor right now? Morrigan asked, when is he raising his army? The Carpiao replied, I don't know. That's top secret. Morrigan studied the Carpiao, who asked, is Hung Jun well? The two of them replied simultaneously, don't know. Lu Su, who's Hung Jun? Morrigan, I don't know the person that you speak of. The Carpiao was a little dejected and its fish head drooped. Lu Su and Morrigan exchanged a glance, before Morrigan said, oh, I remember now, but that'll have to depend on your behavior. Lu Su was growing a little sympathetic, but when he thought about how complicated this matter was, it was not right for him to say anything. After all, it was not his place to determine whether or not the Carpiao should be forgiven. That would depend on Li Jinglong. How should I behave? The Carpiao asked hurriedly, as if it had caught a glimpse of hope. Do as you see fit, Morrigan replied, evidently not willing to put more effort into wrangling the Carpiao. If I run into them, I'll put in a word for you. Where is Hung Jun? The Carpiao asked. Obviously, Morrigan could not tell the Carpiao the current plans and movements of the exorcism department, because if he did, then his head would have truly been hit by a door. He simply rose and gestured at Lu Su. I'll go with you guys, the Carpiao said. I want to go home. Morrigan reached out and stopped the Carpiao as he and Lu Su walked out the door. Lu Su couldn't resist glancing back at the Carpiao as he did so. The Carpiao followed them out, dogging Morrigan's steps. Lu Su, however, said, let's fly out, otherwise we'll draw too much attention. And saying that, he turned into the white deer. The Carpiao hurriedly latched onto the white deer's hind legs and didn't let go. Get off. Take me back with you, I'm begging you. No way, Morrigan said. The white deer hesitated for a bit, but Morrigan said, hurry up and go. We have to make the best use of our time. The white deer had no choice but to lift its hooves and kick backwards, instantly sending the Carpiao flying, where it fell onto the ground. Third eldest, you've changed, the Carpiao said. Behave, Morrigan replied without even looking back. Hung Jun will forgive you. The white deer leapt into the air, bounding over the rooftops. The Carpiao scrambled to its feet, shouting, wait a sec. That day, I was outside the exorcism department. But the white deer had already flown off into the sky, leaving no trace behind. End chapter. Tianbao Fu Yao Lu. Chapter 136. Dragon Souls returning home. The starlight is dim and weak, the white deer said. I cannot fly for very long. Hurry back to Chang'an as quickly as you can. We'll stop the search, Morrigan said. After you leave the city, get down on the ground so we can swap. I'll carry you. But in the blink of an eye, a ball of black energy rose from within the city, spinning as it shot towards the white deer. Morrigan immediately looked back and shouted, Lu Su. Watch out. The white deer was caught off guard, and the black energy slammed into it. It immediately began to plummet, and the black energy bellowed as it shot towards the two of them. In midair, Lu Su transformed back into a human, and Morrigan hurriedly turned and pulled Lu Su tightly into his arms as the two of them plummeted swiftly towards the plains outside the city. They fell into a group of trees. The moment they crashed down, Morrigan's right shoulder hit the ground first, and the bone in his arm immediately snapped. He let out a pained howl. Lu Su! Lu Su! Lu Su remained unconscious. In the distance came the roars of wild beasts. Evidently, a large group of the Yaoguai in Yuzhu city had discovered their enemies' tracks, and had all come racing out of the city in hot pursuit. The grey wolf slung Lu Su over its back. One of its front legs was curled up, and it hobbled along on the other three, dragging its injured leg along as it sprinted across the plains, fleeing Yuzhu city. A bright sun blazed in the sky, and the air was filled with yellow sand. In this land of echoing emptiness, the sands were engulfing the huge bones of an ancient dragon. Qiu Yangxi, Hong Jun, and Ying Huo were riding on top of Xianming's dragon head as they arrived on the fourth level of the dragon subduing tower. This was a vast world filled with sand. What was its name? Xianming flew a circle around that skeleton. I forgot. Hong Jun had been doing his best to rack his brains for the answer, but when he saw that skeleton, he was even more unable to remember. That's not important. It's already dead, Ying Huo said. It was the oldest one, and a long time ago, it took Lord Xianyuan away from Dinggu. Let's go. So with that, Xianming raised its head and rose into the air. It gathered its strength in its abdomen, and Ying Huo too sucked in a small breath of air. Qiu Yangxi pressed his palms together, fingers pointed upwards, in a gesture of respect. At the same time, Xianming and Ying Huo breathed out simultaneously, letting out dragon roars that sounded like metal clashing on metal. Those roars traveled far, but were not piercing to the ear. It seemed to be some odd ritual of the ancient dragon clan, where they were mourning this old dragon's death with an elegy. The roars resonated in Hong Jun's chest as well. In the distance, in the center of the sand dunes, that pillar of light that shot straight into the heavens drew closer and closer to them. Xianming then plunged headfirst into it. There was another huge boom, and a wild gust of wind came at them. Everyone let out loud shouts as they were sent flying. Hong Jun hadn't thought that the winds would be so strong on this level, to the point where even Xianming was sent flying far away into the distance. Hong Jun! Qiu Yangxi yelled. Hong Jun was instantly swept to who knows where, and in that instant, Qiu Yangxi, Ying Huo, and Xianming all turned into black dots that vanished in the wild gale. He called up the pentacolor sacred light, but there was nothing for him to push back against. He threw out his throwing knives, but they were instantly swept away by the wind. Hong Jun hurriedly lifted a hand to call them back, but he himself was moving faster than his throwing knives. As soon as Qiu Yangxi waved his brush, he found that in this layer of strong wind, there was no way for him to create a painting. There was nothing at all in this world, because above him and below him stretched thousands of zhang of empty air. Ying Huo transformed into a dragon, spewing out flames, but as soon as the flames left his mouth, they were swept away. Xianming kept coiling in place, breathing out his icy breath, but as soon as their breaths materialized, the wind swept them away. Yangxi, Hong Jun shrieked. The wall of wind swept down on him mercilessly. Hong Jun felt as if he had become a single, light feather drifting amidst a tornado, and he spun through the air, unable to tell where he was. But in that same instant, the world grew dark and grim. Countless points of light gathered furiously towards him like streaking comets, before there was a bright glow in front of him. Hong Jun's heart beat wildly, as if it was trying to burst out of his chest. A dragon's roar sounded, but he couldn't tell which direction it was coming from. Within the huge hurricane in the center of the fifth layer, a dragon's form was faintly visible. Black chi seeped out from the tornado winds, and the dragon roared, with the power of mere ants, who do not know how immense this world is. With great difficulty, Hong Jun turned, only to see thousands of meteorites streaking through the tornado, as if thousands of white threads were slicing through the darkness, spinning as they were caught up by that dark vortex of wind. That was the heart lamp. Li Jinglong? Hong Jun asked, his voice trembling. Li Jinglong. The wind drowned out his voice, and the black chi billowed wildly. Right then, the white threads that came from the heart lamp forcibly twisted the tornado in a different direction, and it swept towards Hung Jun. The huge downwards force towards the eye of the storm pulled him into a passageway, causing him to swiftly slide along, shua, right on in. In the vast darkness that filled the world, he saw a stone pillar standing tall in the eye of the storm. Li Jinglong, his martial robes flapping in the wind, glowed with a brilliant light. Thousands of rays of light shot forth from one of his hands, and as if they were tangible, they were swept up into the wall of wind created by the tornado. The world was pitch black, as if the apocalypse was nigh, but Li Jinglong stood tall and untouched, like a divinity within this darkness. Sorrow and joy intermingled in his voice as Hung Jun shouted, "Li Jinglong!" There was another dragon roar, and the power of the heart lamp that was coiling around the black tornado instantly disintegrated. Just as Hung Jun was about to approach Li Jinglong, he was pulled backwards by another huge force. But in the blink of an eye, Li Jinglong reached a hand out. Hung Jun reached out as well, and in the moment that they brushed by each other, they managed to grab on Li Jinglong. Hung Jun's tears streamed forth from his eyes, before being blown away by the wind. "What are you supposed to call me?" Li Jinglong seemed to be smiling. They had been separated for so long, but it felt like nothing more than the span of an ordinary 15 minutes. The two of them held onto each other's wrist tightly, and Hung Jun sobbed as the wind swirled around him. Li Jinglong repeated, "What are you supposed to call me? The way you addressed me was wrong. Oh, I feel so slighted, I spent so much effort coming here to rescue you. Call me Jiga." "Ga, Jiga," Hung Jun shouted. He had to hand it to him. At such a time, "You still." And with a burst of strength, Li Jinglong forcefully pulled Hung Jun in front of him, where Hung Jun managed to find a foothold. The stone pillar under their feet, which was about a jong in circumference, was currently slowly and constantly disintegrating away, and in the blink of an eye, just as it was about to crack completely, Li Jinglong let out a short shout. "Hold on tight." Hung Jun immediately reached out to his side and grabbed on tightly to Li Jinglong's waist, and a dragon king appeared right in front of the stone pillar. Its entire body was snowy white, save for the pitch-black patch on its forehead, which was weeping devil chi. The Dragon King suddenly opened its eyes and roared at the two of them. The tornado swiftly closed in on the stone pillar in the center, but in that very moment, Li Jinglong tightened his left hand, and a long bow in the shape of a crescent moon appeared in his hand. His right hand then pulled back through the air, 3 fingers crooked and 2 fingers extended, as he drew the longbow formed by the heart lamp out to its full draw length. The light turned into an arrow shaft. Hung Jun. Hung Jun looked up at the side of Li Jinglong's face. The instant that he shot the arrow, his side profile was so handsome that Hung Jun's heart beat wildly at the sight of it. "Look at the enemy, what are you looking at me for?" One side of Li Jinglong's mouth quirked up, as if he was able to sense that in that moment, Hung Jun had been moved. The heart lamp's power once again grew stronger, before suddenly, the arrow left the bowstring. The arrow of light shot out, but instead of heading directly for the Dragon King's forehead, a bright light that filled the sky burst out from it with a boom, raining down like a scatter of blossoms, which trailed off in all directions, while the arrow itself revolved as it arced higher into the sky. The Dragon King seemed to have sensed the danger, and it suddenly turned its head. Li Jinglong then waved his sword fingers, and the threads of light that filled the sky all shot towards the Dragon King's forehead at the same time. Hung Jun only saw a bright flash in front of him, before there was an ear-splitting roar. The black chi on the Dragon King's forehead burst apart, and the tornado around them vanished as well. "It worked!" Hung Jun shouted excitedly. A little quieter, Li Jinglong was torn between laughing and crying. "Hung Jun!" Hung Jun hugged Li Jinglong around the waist, and Li Jinglong let out a long breath before turning to him. He looked down, and their eyes met. "I came late," Li Jinglong said, still a little worried. "You aren't hurt, are you?" Hung Jun shook his head, and with that, Li Jinglong bent down and kissed him firmly. After the tornado vanished, the Dragon King of the Wild Winds flew out, only to be swept into the wall of wind. Xianming and Ying Huo immediately took dragon form and flew towards the wall of wind. Wah! Ashinakayan had already thrown up from how violently he was spinning, but just as the vomit left his mouth, it was pulled away by the tornado surrounding the wall of wind. Ying Huo came flying towards him, catching Ashinakayan, before asking, "Who's this?" "Kayan." Qiu Yangxi shouted, his head also spinning dizzily. "Where's the Dragon King? Take them all with us." Xianming shouted. "Go up to the 6th level. Take that brat who's causing the wind with us as well." Hung Jun and Li Jinglong were still standing on that stone pillar. The two of them were actually ignoring the wild tornado around them altogether as they hugged each other tightly, their tongues intertwining. Li Jinglong wanted nothing more than to pull Hung Jun into his own body. "You two, stop fucking kissing!" Qiu Yangxi roared as he came charging in on top of Xianming. "Let's hurry up and leave." It was only then that Li Jinglong separated from Hung Jun. He pulled Hung Jun into his arms and leapt off the stone pillar, and Xianming caught the two of them. Ying Huo sent a blast of fire towards the Dragon King of the Wild Winds, who was drifting unconscious in the wind wall, and that Dragon King immediately woke from the pain. It let out a roar in response, before it realized the situation it was in, and it then flew out of the wind wall and followed behind. There was a flash of light, and what appeared before them was the thick forests of the 6th level. The group had finally managed to reunite, and it felt as if they had been given a new lease on life. Li Jinglong led them through to a little pond in the forest, where there sat a poison dragon king who had been wounded in the throat. Beforehand, when Li Jinglong and Ashinakayan had entered the 6th level, they had used the heart lamp to get rid of the devil spawn that had resided parasitically in his throat. "Your name is Shu Hai," Hung Jun said to him. That poison dragon king's eyes widened swiftly, his gaze filled with joy. When he saw Ying Huo and the rest of them again, he stood up, leading his companions to the shore of the lake. "Rest for a bit," Li Jinglong said, before gesturing for the exorcists to sit down on the other side of the lake. From beginning to end, Li Jinglong had been holding onto Hung Jun's hand, and now that Hung Jun had seen Li Jinglong, he finally felt a sense of stability return. He chattered at him for a long while about everything that had happened on his end, and Li Jinglong listened intently. From time to time, he would shoot Qiu Yangxi an admonishing glare, and Qiu Yangxi had no choice but to smile bitterly. Ashinakayan didn't know whether to cry or laugh. You can't blame that on anyone. If anything, I can only blame myself for being unlucky. It's my fault, Qiu Yangxi said helplessly. After he learned that Xiaoyu had escaped the tower, he felt as if the situation had grown even more dire. I was afraid that you wouldn't be able to get in, Hung Jun said to Li Jinglong. If I stayed in the tower for 100 days or so, then it'd be over. Li Jinglong replied, even if I died, I would still make it into the tower. How could I not come? Hung Jun frowned, what about the outside? I don't care, Li Jinglong replied easily. Hung Jun. Li Jinglong smiled. While I was heading down layer by layer to find you, for some reason, I started thinking that if I wasn't able to get out, perhaps that was the will of the heavens. The heavens themselves wanted us to stay in the tower for the rest of our lives. Hey, Ashinakayan protested, even if you don't want to get out, Zenshi, I still want to, so you'd best stop dealing such terrible blows to our morale. Hung Jun began to laugh. Li Jinglong said, let me sleep for a while. I'm really too tired, I can't hold out any longer. And as he said that, Li Jinglong snuggled into Hung Jun's lap. Hung Jun lifted his arm, wrapping it around him. Li Jinglong had held out for a whole 36 shishan, and now, as soon as he said he would sleep, he fell asleep. Hung Jun stroked his head, before ducking his head and pressing a gentle kiss to his lips. I can't hold out any longer either, Ashinakayang said. Who cares if the Jade Emperor himself comes down to greet us, let me sleep first. And once he said that, Ashinakayang lay right down on the ground and fell asleep. Chu Yongxi and Hung Jun, though they had rested, were also exhausted, and not long after, they too fell asleep right where they were. Xianming, Ying Huo and the new arrivals Fei Lian, the Wind Dragon King, and Shu Hai, the Poison Dragon King, stood in one area, having a quiet discussion. How many escaped from the 5th level? Ying Huo asked. After Fei Lian took human form, it turned out that he was a youth about the same age as Hung Jun. He was also the youngest amongst the Dragon Kings. Fei Lian sighed. 141 Jiao. They all escaped towards the 9th level. What should we do with the Jiao who have crossed over the barriers to head to the 9th level? Xianming asked. As protocol dictates, Fei Lian said, they must all be cast into the deep abyss in the 1st level. With that, there won't be many left in the entirety of the tower, Ying Huo said calmly. The 4 Dragon Kings fell quiet for a time. Xiaoyu had broken through the barriers on each level, so after killing Yeming, almost all of the Jiao had left the Dragon King's surveillance and wildly flooded the 9th level. They were all waiting for Yeming to die, because they wanted nothing more than to break through the final barrier as soon as the dragon subduing tower collapsed. Technically, they should all be cast into the deep abyss. The Poison Dragon King Shu Hai pointed above them, meaning that Yeming's dragon souls were still here, so he should be the one to make the decision. We are all wounded, Xianming said, and Yeming is no longer able to do battle. Even if we wanted to throw them into the deep abyss, we may not be able to. The Dragon Kings had fallen prey to the parasitic Devil Chi, and though the Devil Chi had already been gotten rid of, their vitalities had also been heavily injured. It was already very hard for them to have continued on to where they were now. If the Jiao grouped together to attack, it was uncertain who would win and who would lose. There were no Dragon Kings guarding the various levels of the dragon subduing tower any longer, so the tower was certain to fall into chaos if they lost. Perhaps they can, Ying Huo looked towards the exorcists slumped over on the ground. We cannot seek any further help from the mortals, Xianming said. What does this have to do with them? Looking at this situation from a 10,000-foot view, there are countless types of disasters in the human realm, which began from the time that Xiaoyu escaped the tower. In the end, it is the fault of me and mine. If we count all of us here, we may end up living even longer than this world itself. How can we rest easy then, knowing that? Because of that scolding, the gathered Dragon Kings all looked dejected and dispirited for a time. After sleeping for almost 5 Shishan, Hung Jun once again woke from hunger. Actually, ever since entering the tower, Hung Jun hadn't eaten anything, a whole 30 Shishan had passed. This was basically a new record for him in terms of fasting, because the last time he had gone on a hunger strike was when he was fighting with Chongming, and he had starved himself for a whole 24 Shishan. I'm going to die of hunger, Hung Jun said, shaking Li Jinglong. How about we eat one of the Dragon Kings in the bunch? Li Jinglong also woke up. Li Jinglong. Chu Yongxi replied, if worse comes to worst, let's all work together and butcher a Jiao Ba. It should be alright for the dragon subduing saint to kill a Jiao in the tower. No need, Li Jinglong said, his eyes bleary with sleep. He pulled out a pouch, which was filled with quite a lot of rations. Just as he opened it up, Hung Jun snatched it over. His and Chu Yongxi's eyes glimmered green as they swiftly stuffed their mouths with the rations. Li Jinglong rose to go wash his face, and he brought back some water for Hung Jun to drink. Ashinakayang said, let me eat some as well. While we were in that whirlwind, I threw up everything in my stomach. Everyone filled their stomachs, but Li Jinglong simply sat there, watching Hung Jun eat. Only after Hung Jun finished eating did he break off a chunk, slowly chewing away on it as he thought. He then said, the Dragon King on the 7th level is dead. N. Hung Jun nodded, and Li Jinglong continued. I also have not yet figured out a solid plan for how to fight the one on the 8th level, but with several Dragon Kings here, it should not be difficult. However, we must not underestimate our enemy. Everyone rose to their feet. Xianming was already exhausted, so Fei Lian, whose forehead was still bleeding, carried the exorcists and the 3 Dragon Kings through the 7th level. A torrential rain was pouring down on the entirety of the 7th level, and the ground looked like an ocean. Hung Jun opened up the pentacolor sacred light to keep the rain off them, and as they traveled, they passed by the huge skeleton of another dragon, the Water Dragon King, before they flew towards the light pillar in the distance. 2 Dragon Kings have lost their lives, Li Jinglong said. The blame for that must fall on Xiaoyu's shoulders. Whether human or dragon, death will always come in the end, Yang Huo said. While we are alive, we stand above and look down on all the living beings on this earth. After we die, our bodies will nurture the earth of this land. What harm is there in that? Why exactly did you all willingly come to the dragon subduing tower? Li Jinglong asked. Even without him, this place would still have been where we returned to, Xianming replied. Li Jinglong seemed to realize something, and he asked, could it be? Is the dragon subduing tower a tomb for the dragons? None of the Dragon Kings replied. Li Jinglong finally understood why, when the dragons took human form, none of them looked very old, but when they were chatting, it seemed as if they had already lived for tens of thousands of years. Those that willingly chose to remain in the dragon subduing tower were, in reality, waiting for death to come to them. End chapter.